Hello again, and welcome back to the Getting Dressed podcast. I'm Anthony Bolognese.
And I'm Leah Nalepa.
She was not ready for that. All right. It's all right. We're here. Let's do it. So today we're going to be talking about how personal style and style overall in various different facets have changed since the COVID-19 pandemic. I think the style world before was pretty normal. I mean, I think a lot of people were very in tune with what they were used to doing. And then since their entire life and lifestyle and daily activities shifted in this ridiculous direction for 2 years, I think a lot of people have either forgotten what style should be as it pertains to their personal life or their work life or anything like that, or just haven't necessarily had the means to adapt in the ways that I think the rest of society had. So let's start figuring it out.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, reflecting over the past 2 years, like lots of things have changed for everyone on an individual level, you know, outside of the pandemic, which we're not going to dig into, but people change the routines, whether they're full-time working remotely right now or have adapted to some hybrid model or back in the workplace. Routines have dramatically changed. People have gained or lost weight, which has, of course, helped or hindered their wardrobe. And so that's a reality that a lot of people face, and that's totally fine. We just need to understand it. And then the third thing, which I think you kind of brought up here, Anthony, is understanding how the heck work culture and work styles have changed, because I think, you know, people could get up, get dressed in 5 minutes, just go into work knowing exactly what they're going to wear every day before this. And now it's like, is it business professional? Is it business casual? A lot of offices and companies have gone very casual, but then have offered no additional education on what those level of professionalism attire actually is and what that means for their individual employees. Especially, I think, for people who are going out and about, meeting people, sales, you know, external relations, things like that. It's just like, what am I supposed to be wearing right now? And will the other person that I'm meeting be wearing khakis and a polo, or are they going to be wearing a full three-piece suit? Mm-hmm. Those are a lot of tricky things to navigate. And I know you and I have both seen some posts online, as well as had personal conversations with our friends and network about how things have changed in COVID, you know, and kind of the lack of understanding there. Mm-hmm.
And there's also, I'm going to preface this, at least in my case, with there being a bit of a disconnect, because I work for myself full-time, and my day-to-day wardrobe during the pandemic was right back to what it was in basically high school, sweatpants and hoodies. But then I understand that a lot of people that have, you know, are dealing with that out of office and then inching back toward working in office, that there's a lot of kind of confusion there, and the lack of explicit instruction about how much style has been relaxed because of what we all collectively went through in the pandemic. You do have a full-time job outside of your styling business. Right. So you can speak a little bit more to that, as far as, you know, what you have been comfortable wearing as someone who is consciously thinking in that way, and then what you have seen of other people that may not have experienced.
Yeah, definitely. So my office, my 9 to 5 is much more traditional, and I would say kind of went back to their business professional as it was pre-pandemic. So that perspective hasn't changed too much. However, with both clients that I've worked with as well as companies that I've been to on a presentation basis, I've seen just dramatic changes. So for example, I gave a presentation a couple months ago at a startup in the DC area, and their level of dress is casual, which is great for many people. But what I noticed is as they were hiring younger and younger people who had never experienced the quote unquote real workplace or the real world before, clearly hadn't been educated in what casual dress meant in the workplace versus what I like to call street casual. So for example, there was a young woman who was wearing a camouflage dress, but it had like camisole straps, and she had a jean jacket over it, but felt comfortable taking the jean jacket off in the workplace. And in my head, I'm like, maybe that's cute for brunch, but in no world, even if you're an accountant sitting back in your own office, never interacting with someone, is that okay? It's showing too much skin, and it's just really too casual for the type of workplace that was. And then you had all the way on the other end of the spectrum, men and women wearing dresses and slacks. And so there was clearly a lack of education around like what someone should be wearing even in that casual environment. And so some things that I've liked to point out to my clients and even to myself as I've noticed things change is there is a difference between work casual and street casual. And I think that's the first thing that I want to chat about today is if we're thinking about street casual or what we'd wear at a brunch or going out, date night, whatever that looks like for you, there should be no you can wear rips, you can show a little extra skin, but those things also shouldn't necessarily translate into a casual work environment. So for example, maybe you wear ripped jeans on the weekend, but you wear dark wash, non-holy jeans in your workplace.
Very worldly.
Very worldly. Made sure they are materialistic.
Yes.
Like maybe a polo in the workplace versus a graphic tee. You never want to be too intrusive or offensive even with your clothes as it relates to what type of graphic is on that t-shirt in the first place. And then, of course, when it comes to both men and women, but I think women maybe are confronted with this a little bit more, is how much skin do you actually show? That comes to dresses, to how much cleavage is showing, how much your shoulders and back. And when it comes to those things and having giant question marks about it, I always encourage you to talk to your supervisor or your HR team and say, hey, is wearing something that's sleeveless appropriate or inappropriate? Can I wear a sweater over it, and can I take that sweater off? Maybe, obviously cleavage, in my opinion, should never be shown in the workplace, but understanding like maybe there's an ideal like 5 or 6 fingers below your clavicle, and understanding those baseline things and what work for you, I think is going to be optimal to going back into the workplace in a casual setting. But I know there's been questions about business casual as well. So I know you have some interesting perspective on that.
Yeah. So as far as business casual is concerned, I think that, again, I'm coming from the perspective of primarily men's business casual, and I'll defer to you to follow up with this on women's business casual. But when I think business casual for men, I think, as you mentioned, non-ripped jeans, khakis, chinos, that kind of thing in the more casual sense, and then dress slacks paired with or without a jacket, but usually always with either a polo or a button-up shirt. Overall, that is pretty much the parameters within which I would recommend most people operate as far as business casual. The one thing that has been a lot more fluid, and this is even pre-pandemic, has been footwear. And as we mentioned last episode, I think everyone needs to kind of evolve with their personal style and what they're interested in, what they're willing to wear themselves, and not necessarily knock others for wearing. I used to be staunchly against sneakers and dress slacks. I still wouldn't wear sneakers with a full suit, but I really these days have no issue with wearing, patterned dress slacks with, white Vans or Beckett Simon like leather solid sneakers, something like that, because it is a decidedly casual look. But were I to go into an office environment in what has been decidedly established as business casual environment, it's going to be loafers or it's going to be standard dress shoes, and even then, not to knock any particular brand, but I have a visual vendetta against most things that Cole Haan makes, because those contrasted white soles. They look like sneakers, but with broguing or wingtips or an Oxford toe or something like that. Like I just do not understand that. It's a weird blend of decidedly casual sole and the upper is meant to be a dress shoe, and it just looks super confusing to me. And there's no shortage of that around here, and I see it and grimace pretty much every time. But that's definitely a personal opinion. If you own
I
those
like
shoes,
them. Let the record reflect.
Yeah, we're 50-50. You can choose who you want to side with here. But in the same way, it's very possible that my style choices will and I guess leanings might change over time as well. I've definitely warmed up to the idea of Vans and dress shoes, and I do it relatively often now. But it's a situational thing. And going back into being on the same wavelength with your management and your workplace, knowing if you work at a tech startup and even the bosses are showing up like, Steve Jobs every day, or Bill Gates,
right.
there might be some level of looseness to that. You can wear jeans and a t-shirt. You can wear sneakers. You can wear, your favorite band shirt or some quip you found at Target. Like, if it works for your environment, it works for your environment. But having that clarity and that sense of, I would just say, common sense of not necessarily matching everyone around you, but at least falling into line with what is expected of your workplace.
Yeah, totally. I think we're just given these professional handbooks and then just expected to understand what to wear, and that is not always the case, especially in this changing environment. You mentioned business professional for men, and I wanted to quickly touch on it for women. I like to actually say more of what women shouldn't be wearing versus what they should be wearing in business casual, because it's such a fluid area, and I think it's a lot less structured for women than it is for men. So of course, we can wear collared shirts and slacks and trousers and cigarette pants, but we can also wear really great dresses, pleated skirts, a variety of different types of outfits that can kind of fit into that quote unquote business casual setting. But where I like to kind of steer people away from is, number one, sundresses shouldn't be worn in business casual. And I see this more and more because I think there's, again, just a lack of understanding of like what translates into the work office. And it's like, just because it's beautiful, flatters your body, and is really brightly colored doesn't necessarily mean you should be wearing it in a professional setting, because it's most likely linen or some type of that type of fabric. And it's just going to be flowy and loose, and especially going back to what I said earlier, more prairie style, which is fine in Y2K, but usually that shows more skin, or it's just not necessarily that structured look for professionalism.
And it's also one of those things that you can't necessarily like salvage by throwing a blazer over it.
You can't. No, you can't. It looks really disjointed at that point. Another thing that I am not a fan of for women, and this might be a hot take for some, I'm not sure, is having open-toed shoes. You can wear strappy sandals and it will still match your quote-unquote professional outfit, but I am very hesitant about that. It can work in some casual settings, some business casual settings, but when you start hitting that threshold between business casual and business professional, especially in business professional, in my opinion, as a woman, your toes shouldn't be showing unless it's a peep toe pump versus a sandal.
Yeah, and that's actually, I was going to ask for a little bit of clarification on that, just for my own edification.
Yep.
In business professional, I completely agree with you, but in business casual, where would you say that line is drawn? For those pumps that have that slight open toe, like the size of maybe a guitar pick, but just as wide as your toe.
Yeah. So like I said, if it's a pump and just like the quote unquote peep toe type of shoe, I think that's totally fine, even up to business professional. If you're wearing a suit or a more tailored dress, I think that'll look great. But where I start drawing the line is there's a lot of, strappy sandals, the block heel, an espadrille or a wedge, where if most of your foot is showing, I think that dramatically takes your outfit, even if it is professional, down to casual. You're like, oh, I threw on a blazer, but I'm also wearing the sandals that I would wear to the beach or to brunch. And I'm like, oh, I don't necessarily think that's appropriate, even if the colors match and even if the shoes are leather. And again, that's a personal opinion, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend to my clients who are in a business casual environment to wear a sandal versus a closed-toe shoe for any type of external encounter or presentation. So that is definitely something I recommend. I did have a question from someone recently. I think our conversation actually was really helpful. She asked, how do I show my personal style in a business casual setting without feeling like I'm stuffy or having to wear just like a black suit? And what I said is, look for pieces that are tailored, that are modest, and that have that structure to them, yet find pieces that are a reflection of things that you like outside of the work setting. So for example, maybe these tailored and classic looking cuts have really interesting patterns that you like. The fabrics might be a little bit softer and lay better on your body type. Maybe they're brightly colored, or maybe they're black. Everyone kind of spans in between that color gamut and what they like to wear. For me, I've found dresses that are very tailored and modest, but have really beautiful colors, and I feel powerful in them, especially when I'm giving presentations or have to be in front of people. So that's my 2 cents about business casual for women.
So you heard it here first. The hot takes when it comes to business casual and the red flags, footwear.
There will be many more hot takes, I assure you.
Oh yeah, we are full of hot takes. Another hot take that I think a lot of people have had, I guess, an opinion on in general, jogger waistbands. Yep.
Lay it on. Let's just open this can of worms.
Yeah. So I believe that we are both of the same mind that jogger waistbands are never acceptable for the workplace.
Agreed.
I do appreciate that a lot of brands, and not even just fast fashion brands. I mean, Ermenegildo Zegna has been making joggers out of their high-end Italian wools and cashmeres for many, many years. Mm-hmm. But they're not for the workplace.
Right.
They're just not professional enough. There's no way that you could ever wear a jogger waistband in a situation that requires you to tuck something in and it ever be okay.
Right. Or maybe not for a professional workplace. It could function potentially as casual, but I completely agree with you. I would never tuck something in like that. It's like, hey, maybe you're wearing a sweatshirt or a light tee with your trousers that also have that jogger waistband. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, completely agree. But to be specific, usually I'm seeing this with men. You know, again,
Definitely.
it's a little bit more, I guess, acceptable for women. You know, you have that cigarette pant or trouser that has more of that cinched waistband, and that is more acceptable for women. But when it comes to men, totally on the same page. Yeah,
there has been no pants made for men that kind of embody that same cigarette pants style.
Right.
And women have always kind of been able to, I don't want to say get away as if it's a bad thing, but been more able to wear things that are a little bit more flowy and stretchy. Mm-hmm. And those stretch fabrics have become a thing for, a lot of chinos and jeans. I mean, I'm wearing stretch jeans right now, but it's just not something that I think works for a waistband. And same for the leg opening. Jogger bottoms are something that I see people wearing with those same Kulhon shoes, and it's just not it. It's not okay for work. And I have nothing against joggers. I wear joggers at home almost exclusively if it's chilly enough to justify them, but if I'm going out in joggers, I better be jogging.
Yeah.
That's for sure a personal thing. I know that I am absolutely not making a hard ruling on the entire industry for that.
Right.
But as it pertains to, business casual, never business professional, it's a rough one.
Yeah, I agree. So for our listeners out there who are working remotely, right? They can pretty much wear whatever they want. A lot of people have leaned into athleisure, sweatpants, being comfortable, which I get. But for those looking to boost their style a little bit while maintaining that maybe casual professionalism, what are, I guess, some first steps or recommendations that you would just throw out at them when it comes to remote work and
remote
style?
Work, I mean, that's a tricky one only because I'm tempted to answer this in 2 different ways. Mm-hmm. The first of which is in a way that kind of embodies someone's personal style and brand and is kind of able to exude what they want out of it versus just conforming to a business casual dress code. The other is being frugal and noting that you don't have to go buy, key insane pieces to sit on Zoom.
Right.
I will say that in that vein, you're going to save a lot of money not having to buy pants, much less wear them. In that situation most of the time, but anything on top that has a collar is pretty safe, unless you're being interviewed via Zoom and you're being recorded and people are going to see it. I really don't even see a need to wear a jacket or a tie.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that it's just the casual nature of Zoom work or work from home in general allows you to be a lot more free with it. Mm-hmm. So casual, I would even bring this to a kind of a higher end Henley, which is a decidedly casual piece, but it's still something that might potentially work on the most casual end for work from home stuff. But any polos, any comfortable dress shirts, even just casual stuff with a unstructured collar, that is never designed to have a tie in it. I think that's all totally fine. But honestly, I don't necessarily think that there is a Zoom dress code.
Yeah. No, I don't think there is either. And this is where I go back to what you shouldn't wear versus what you should wear.
Yeah.
I have encountered the hard lessons myself, and this was my own fault, but when I worked remotely, there was one day, of course, that I had to speak with my manager, like Zoom face-to-face, and I hadn't put on a lot of makeup that day, and my hair was thrown up in a sloppy bun and was wearing a black sweatshirt. And she, upon seeing me, asked, "Are you sick?" And I said, "No." But I get the point.
Yep. Message received.
Yeah, exactly. I'm picking up the cards you're putting down.
That actually does that. Sorry to cut you off. That reminds me. I think a point that is more important than what you're wearing is just your general appearance.
Yes.
And this is tangentially related to style in the sense of like your fashion, what you're wearing, but just being presentable. For women, if you feel more comfortable and more confident having even just a base layer of makeup on, putting the same effort into your hair for men and women, makeup if it applies to you, or if you feel the need for it. I know there are a lot of women that just don't wear makeup, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, and I again, sorry, I'm cutting you off now. I think that goes back to understanding that everything we do, even our communication and our appearance, is a reflection of that personal brand that we mentioned in our past episode, where your background is important, how your face looks is important, your hair is important, what you are wearing is important, and also that element of feeling good about yourself. I mean, personally, when I wear sweatpants or leggings day after day after day, I'm just like, okay, is my life at the gym? Is my life on the couch? Or is it actually still working and functioning well? Quick anecdote, I was homeschooled, and my parents made us wear socks and shoes and get dressed every single morning. And back in the day when I was 7, I was very angry about it, but now looking back, I totally understand, because they would always tell us we would be more productive and more intentional with how we approached that day and the work ahead of us when we were fully dressed. And I completely feel that and agree with that now. But I think a lot of society has regressed when it comes to dressing very, very comfortable, because they are home and no one is seeing them. But you are seeing yourself, and more importantly, you are feeling more empowered and less empowered depending on what you're wearing. Definitely. And I think that's a really important element to consider for work from home.
I 100% agree with that. Not even just during the pandemic, but in my own experience working for myself and having days on end at times where I just didn't really have any reason to leave.
Right.
Like I had work to do, but it was all at home, and I just needed to be behind my computer, not even on Zoom for any reason. There was a mental health element to just rolling out of bed and in the hoodie and sweatpants that I fell asleep in and just going straight to work, quote unquote work in that way, versus deciding, okay, I'm going to put on jeans, and even if I don't put shoes on, like just jeans and like a shirt, and that gets me ready for the day. And any inkling that I may have had that trended in the direction of going out for any reason, whether it's social or grocery store or grabbing coffee or whatever, like I'm more likely to do that and more likely to kind of roll that over into something more productive. So I absolutely agree with that. And I'll actually revise my answer for advice for work from home attire. Like, no matter what you're doing, whether it's Zoom or not, like, just get dressed. That's all it takes. It's a getting dressed podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, hence the name of this podcast.
We would be doing a disservice if we didn't tell you to just get dressed every day.
Yes. And that's not to say that we don't all have our days of just, feeling meh, and, we're going to be casual sometimes, but at the very end of the day, like, you are going to feel so much better about yourself. Your energy is literally elevated when you look in the mirror and you're like, damn, I look great. And you can focus on the rest of your day from there. So
and you didn't even need your crystals to get there.
Yeah, all you millennials and Gen Zs out there.
You said as if we're not both millennials.
Right.
But anyway, that was our spiel on work from home and the COVID and just how it kind of affected everyone's style. If you have opinions on this, which I fully expect there to be some opinions on our hot takes, I'm prepared for Cole Haan to send a cease and desist. Bring it on.
We want to hear them all.
We'll entertain him. As always, follow us on Instagram at Getting Dressed Podcast. If you have any questions that you want to reach out, you're welcome to DM us on there. I will read every single one, no matter what. That's arming you for... Oof, that's going to be fun.
Responding is questionable, but he will read every single one.
I will read every single one. I've got so much free time. No, I'm kidding. And then if you did want to reach out with any other kind of inquiries or stories or something that you might want us to tell, gettingdressedpodcast@gmail.com. We are easily accessible, and we'd love to hear your takes on work from home and just how COVID kind of changed your style.
Yeah, and any other topics that you want to hear, we'd love to address and just chat with you about.
Sandwich recipes, whatever you got. All right, guys. See you next time.
See ya.